Welcome back, number 14. This is one of my very favorite brief little modules. I like to think that this is about this question. Why do we say leaders are born, not made, and say it about almost nothing else I can think of? What would be the reason? Let's look at a little bit of research here. This is Warren Bennis, writes a lot of books on this, very well thought of. He says, there is not one trait or characteristic that has any value in predicting leadership potentials. None, not even intelligence. Well, wow. So what's that mean? If this guy is right, do we just quit now? Do we abandon our quest to be leaders? If it doesn't correlate with anything, what could we possibly do? Let's do a little inquiry. Let's find out how you can improve your leadership effectiveness. I'd like you to go to your workbook on page 8. Write the names of a few leaders you admire in your workbook. It could be historical figures, it could be family members, it could be your current boss, it could be George W. Bush, God help you. Anyway, I'm not going to ask you to relate these, just write them down, and I'm going to watch until I see you've written 2 or 3 each. Then I'm going to ask you to write the attributes that made these people great leaders. I'm going to ask you to report these attributes, and I sometimes do this popcorn style. That means just let people speak up. Sometimes I go through the whole room. You can do it either way. If it's a relatively smaller group, I'd ask everyone. I'm always amazed that when I go through the whole room, almost everyone seems to come up with something new, even though lots of people have guessed before. And while these are coming up, I'll have a second chair and maybe a volunteer record them on flip charts. And the method is that when you say your attribute, I will repeat it for the scribe to write it. I will often make it a little bit tighter, a little bit cleaner, and I'll check with you if I got it right before they do it. And by me metering them out in this way, we can keep you from getting ahead of what the scribes can do. So we get a flip chart or two. You can wait and see how the energy in the room is. It's kind of a balance between how much time you take and letting everybody contribute. So if we do that, and then I'm going to ask the group, without a lot of conversation, I'd like you to tell me, which is it more about? Is each attribute more about an attitude or more about a skill? And in some cases it might be a little confusing, and we can say both, attitude/skill. Let's try not to do that. Let's try and figure out which one it's more about. So I go through the list and the group reports. What do you think the answer always is? Well, you're right. It's overwhelmingly attitudes. Think about attitudes, and by the way, I'm going to switch over to the word mindset. I like it better. It doesn't have some of the baggage that the word attitude has. Are attitudes contagious? Are they more contagious than the common cold? You bet. So if leadership is about attitude, how are people usually training leaders? When I went to things, when I worked for NASA, NASA spent lots of money on developmental programs for me. It was always skills training. Well, you see now, this may be the reason we say that leaders are born not made. It's not about skills, it's about attitude. So why don't people train attitude? Well, they don't have an organizing system to show them how. So we look at attitude with the 4D system. We see 2 components. The component of emotion, and that's a really important part. It's about the emotions, how we experience them and express them. And then how we experience and express our thoughts. I'm going to call these expressions, the most interesting ones, I'm going to call them storylines, as we'll see. So what we've done is we've gone through the question of what attributes the most effective people have. You've characterized them as mostly about attitude, and now we divide attitude to 2 manageable parts. This is great fun for me, and we will proceed first to deal with storylines. Thank you for listening. Have a great day wherever you are. Take care, and bye-bye.